Yes, believe it or not, from Dubbo, the Reels, and we are on the road. Seeing what sort of towns you'd like to put on your agenda if you happen to be going for a road trip or packing the camper van or the caravan. And who else to sell Dubbo but the former Mayor Mathew Dickerson, who is on the line now here. G'day, Matthew. How you going, mate?
G'day, Nick. Very nice touch with the Reels. I thought that was very good. John Mason, the father of one of the Reels, of course. I spent a bit of time with John. He's getting a bit old now, but a very nice touch there.
Former local member, the father of the Reel, yeah, that's
right.
He's,
he's 90 years of age now, still going strong, still involved in the community.
What keeps you in Dubbo, Matthew?
Look, Nick, any of these places that you talk to, I'm sure they all say they're wonderful communities and we all love it and we're all special and we're all different. And we can all say that, but I thought what I'd do today is talk about the numbers. Let's put some facts and some data around it. So the first number that jumps out at me for Dubbo is 380,000. That's the median house price in Dubbo at the moment. So you can actually afford to buy your house. And that's a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage. Now, when we talk to people in Sydney, what's the Sydney median house price? Probably 1.2 million at the moment.
1.1, 1.2, yep.
And that buys you, what, a little 2-bedroom pokey place with maybe a car park. So that's the first thing that you can
that is a chicken house in Kogarah.
That's about it, that's right. So you can actually afford to buy your house. And then the second thing is the number 5 versus the number 71. 5 minutes is about the long commute time in Dubbo compared to Sydney, maybe 71 minutes. So as nice as it is sitting in the car, listening to ABC radio while you're commuting, in Dubbo you only get to do that for 5 minutes, whereas in Sydney, 71 minutes. So that's a fair length of time. The other part that I think is really different for people in Dubbo or to get people out to Dubbo is that people think you've got a country town and they think of big open paddocks and clods of dirt and a few trees. But what they miss is that you've actually got a regional city, and that's really lost on a lot of people. And I suppose I'm thinking more of Sydney people rather than your listeners, because your listeners are a bit smarter than Sydney people. They understand a bit of this. But we've got things like a...
See, Dubbo people continually flatter you as well.
That's right. That's another good trick from us. But we've got a 27-hole golf course. We've got a 500-seat theatre. We've got a 5-screen movie cinema. We've got a 400-metre international athletics track. So it's numbers. We've got almost 500,000 people a year come and visit us in our zoo. We've got 2 shopping centres. We've got about 15 kilometres of walking and cycling tracks. So it's all those numbers that you start to add those up and you go, well, why wouldn't you come to Dubbo? For people wanting to visit, just to come along for a visitation, I mentioned the zoo already. We do some fantastic work with animal conservation at the zoo, but really it's unbelievable tourist attraction. It really
well, what is this? Look, I spent so much time at the zoo when I was living in Dubbo. We had an annual pass, and every visitor went along with it. But I haven't been in, must be nearly 30 years, Matt. What's it like these days?
Yeah, it's certainly been opened up a lot. And one of the great things they've done is they've opened up the whole front entrance area. So you can just go out there and have a coffee. You get some friends to Dubbo, let's go to the zoo and have a coffee. And you get a bit of the ambience of the zoo without having to pay to go into it. As a local, you don't want to go and pay every time a visitor comes, but the visitors can go through it. But you just get that feel, you get the cafe, you get the open lake there at the beginning of it. So to me, that's really one of the great features, of course. Now, for people that do come to Dubbo, I think a really significant tourist spot to visit as well is a scene. In fact, it was one of the most devastating scenes of my life. The number 2, keeping on with the numbers theme, the number 2 comes to mind. That's how many grand finals I watched Manly lose at 4 Brigalow Avenue. And of course, that's a scene that you might be vaguely familiar with, Nick, but that's certainly got to be somewhere that people go and visit. The 82 and 83 grand finals, I still am a mad Manly supporter, and I watched Manly get thumped in those 2 grand finals by Parramatta as part of their hat trick they won of grand finals. But you may remember those days at 4 Brigalow Avenue, Nick.
Yeah, I don't think people will be making a pilgrimage to my old childhood home, Matthew, somehow.
We can put some signs up around there, Nick. That might be something. But
what about the accommodation if someone's going to camp or tow a caravan? What's that like in Dubbo?
There are obviously lots of motels. We've got 3,500 motel beds, but you've also got campsites around Dubbo where you can basically camp for free. You've got showground you can stay at, but you've also got some of the caravan parks. So you've got powered sites. You've got a couple of those because obviously being on the point where you've got 3 highways that join in Dubbo, we do have a lot of people that come along and have their caravans. Back in the old days when you could travel around Australia, not so much anymore, but you'd get people who'd be the grey nomads who'd be doing their trips around Australia, and obviously being on the Newell Highway, being on the Mitchell Highway, people would be going through Dubbo and wanting to stay there with their caravan. So very easy for people to make that trek, especially from your part of the woods.
Now, there'll be 20 people listening from such suburbs as the Rule and Austinmere that will be keen for their soy, turmeric, matcha lattes. What's the coffee culture like in Dubbo, Matthew?
We've found coffee. We've actually found a bit of
culture.
You found it? Yeah, that's right. and in the old days, coffee was, Nescafe 43 beans, throw a bit of hot water in, but they've actually found places that can do patterns on the top of the coffee now. So, yeah, for those people who like their coffee, and again, it's that point I make, it's no longer a country town, it's a regional city. In fact, technically it was made a city back in the 60s, but that was in name only. I think it took a fair while for us to become a regional city. But now we are, because we've got all those things that make us a regional city. We are one of the 7 technically Evo cities in New South Wales, and those Evo cities.
What was that phrase? An Evo city?
Evo city. It was a marketing concept that was started back in about 2010. 7 councils got together. There were certain criteria that you had to have. You had to have a university, for example. You had to have some private schooling. You had to have theatres, movie cinemas. You had to have a whole range of things to tick the box. If you're an Evo city, then you got to be part of that marketing program of Evo cities. And again, that marketing, Nick, was all about don't move to a country town, don't visit a country town, visit a regional city. And I had a really interesting conversation with a taxi driver. Taxi drivers must hate when they pick me up at the airport in Sydney, Nick, because I'll talk to them about Dubbo as long as the taxi ride will go for. And this guy said, Sydney's so much better. And I said, right, well, tell me how. And we went along and we went through all the different things. I mean, the Archibald Prize, I've seen the full exhibition of all the Archibald finalists in Dubbo twice. I've never seen it in Sydney. So we went through all these things, and he finally got me when he said, they've got a beach and we haven't got a beach. And I said, technically we do. We've got a place called Sandy Beach on our river.
Sandy Beach on the Macquarie River.
That's right. There's not too many waves there, though. So if you want to surf, look, probably not.
I'd prefer Sandy Beach on the Macquarie myself. Now, Matthew, I understand you've got a special treat for us, a Dubbo poem you'd like to recite. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure thing. While we've got a bit of culture, we thought we'd
go on. Give us some culture.
So this is a poem that I wrote called The New Dubbo. I actually wrote it when I was mayor, but this is called The New Dubbo. So here we go. First, I'd like to acknowledge we live in a Wiradjuri nation, which started 60,000 years before our current population. You may not recognise Dubbo as it has a new look and feel. My excitement is quite obvious and impossible to conceal. I'm sure you've heard of our zoo, our most popular tourist destination, which is known around the world for its work in animal conservation. Or you can explore penal history at the famous Old Dubbo Jail, where 8 ghosts are said to wander. Or is that an old wives' tale? Our sporting fields are second to none, with a carnival every week. The International Athletics track will have you running at your peak. 3 highways join at Dubbo, making us the gateway to the west. Businesses and developers are both very keen to invest. Schools, TAFE and universities give an educational theme. And the influx of young students has certainly helped our rugby team. Most people assume regionals rely solely on agriculture, but that has all changed as we've discovered a thing called culture. Just to prove the point, we built the aptly named Cultural Centre. The gallery and museum will amaze you when you enter. We have a 500-seat theatre. Of course, the seats are tiered. And the acoustics are spot on, as it was perfectly engineered. Don't forget our Shoyu Japanese and sensory gardens. We believe they are the best in the state, with no beg your pardons. Ride your bike on a river cycleway. Leave your automobile. You can squeeze into your lycra and then show off your buns of steel. But what is unique and will amaze you beyond your wildest dreams is how friendly everyone is, as we all take it to extremes. A compliment here, a wave over there, nothing's too much trouble. Our smiles are so wide, you can see them from Telescope Hubble. You see, we have something that can't be bought. We like to call it time. Our lifestyle is grand, it is great. I normally just call it sublime. You can see we have so much more to offer. The than just our world-class zoo. And, to top it all off, we had a mayor who thought he was a poet too.
I could not have predicted buns of steel turning up in that poem about Dubbo, but I'm glad it did. Matthew, you're a fantastic advocate for the town, I beg your pardon, regional city, and thank you very much for having a chat to us today.
My pleasure, Nick.
Good on you. Mathew Dickerson, formerly the mayor and business consultant. You and Nick Rheinberger, this is 97.3 ABC Illawarra. Great to have you with us.